Hello and welcome to This is Community by Volunteer Galway. My name is Ruth Fagan. I'm a member of the team with Volunteer Galway and I'm also the presenter of this week's episode. The podcast is pretty much brand new, so we're delighted that you found us. And if you like what you hear, you can subscribe to us on whatever podcast platform that you're using. So the idea behind the podcast really originated in the fact that in Volunteer Galway, we get to meet some really interesting and inspirational people. People who are doing their little bit for their local community. We also get to hear about some of the fantastic work that's going on in the community, not just by volunteers, but by all sorts of people from all walks of life. So we thought it would be great just to take some time and chat to these people. People who are making a positive impact in their community through the work that they do. We're interested in finding out about what motivates these people, what their journey's been like for them, and maybe what they envision both for themselves and for the community that they live in. If you'd like to give us comments or feedback on the podcast, you can find out how to do that in the notes section at the end of this episode. This week, I was joined by Dr. Malie Coyne. Malie is a clinical psychologist in child and adolescent mental health services here in Galway. She's also worked nationally in mainstream media. She's done a lot of work with A Lust for Life. She's written many articles. She's presented her own radio show. I should also mention she's lectured in NUIG Galway. And she's currently writing a new book all about a compassionate guide to parenting. So before I introduce Malie, I'd like to just give you a little bit of information about our service if you don't know about us already. So for those of you who don't know, we have a website, www.volunteergalway.ie. We have a huge amount of volunteer roles. They're updated on a regular basis. They're in many different types of areas and lots of different things that you can do on there. If you want to volunteer, all you have to do is register, first of all, on our website. That'll take a couple of minutes. It's really simple. And then you can apply for any of the roles that you see. Alternatively, if you want to get a bit of support with it, we can arrange an appointment for you. You can come in, meet a member of our staff and get a bit of support, have a chat and figure out what might suit you best. So if you want to find out about our service, you can give us a call on 091 581 727 or you can email us info@volunteergalway.ie. And again, we'll include in the notes section at the end of this episode all the information about our service that you might need. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to introduce this week's guest, Dr. Malie Coyne. So welcome, Malie, to our podcast. Delighted to have you join us today and thanks for taking some time out of your schedule.
Thank you.
To talk to us. So just at the intro bit there to this episode, I introduced you as a clinical psychologist here in Galway, but also as an author, a writer, broadcaster, quite a lot of strings to your bow. So for the purpose of today's conversation, I'd love to talk to you just about the many elements of your work, both here locally in Galway and on a national level as well.
Yeah, great.
But just to kick off, could I ask you what motivated you to get into this career? Did you always know you wanted to be a psychologist, or how did it all come about?
I think it probably came about from a pretty young age. There's a great book out there called The Drama of Being a Child by Alice Miller, and she talks about how people enter the helping professions, and usually it's when maybe you had a particular role in your family as maybe the person who gave out help or who provided help within the family and supported people. And I suppose that's kind of the role that I naturally took on, or else that was given to me. I don't know. In any case, I kind of knew around the ages of 15, 16, when there was an opportunity to do psychology in school. I was living in Korea at the time. My dad was a diplomat. So there was an opportunity to do psychology as one of my subjects for the International Baccalaureate. So that came very naturally to me. Had it not been psychology, I was thinking of physiotherapy.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
and then before that, I was thinking, when I was a very young child, I remember saying that I was going to be a pediatrician.
Right.
So actually, you know, it was a doctor of children.
So it was there.
So it was there. It was
Yeah.
definitely there. The kind of giving help. So that's kind of how it all started.
It makes a lot of sense, and I think I could see that in a lot of people I know who work both in the community and in caring professions. I think that is quite a common theme that I would see.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of work with Galway Parent Network, and I'd love to just talk about that a little bit today. Maybe just let our listeners know who Galway Parent Network are, what are they about, and also specifically the work that you've done with them.
In my work, like I suppose with Galway Parent Network, Nicole McGuigan is the lady who began the Galway Parent Network. It's still an organisation that's in formation as such.
Okay.
And it's out there to support parents within the Galway community to kind of for them to find the supports that they need within the Galway community, because Nicole McGuigan would be huge, she would be big into community-based support services. So the Galway Parent Network and Nicole became involved with the Early Years Committee, which I'm a member of.
Right.
And I'm a member of the Early Years Committee in my role as I'm a HSE psychologist.
Yes.
So I'm a member of that Early Years Committee, which is made up of, there's parent reps on it, there's people from different organisations, and really our goal is to improve the health and well-being of the 0 to 3 year old age bracket within Galway.
Okay.
And a few years ago we came up, and with Galway City Partnership, there's quite a number of Galway organisations involved, and we came up with, and Healthy Cities in Galway as well, we came up with a plan that was very much based on what people of Galway wanted, parents in Galway wanted, and then the different minority groups within Galway, and then also looking at what professionals thought was going to be useful for the 0 to 3 year old age bracket.
So a consultation.
Exactly, a whole consultation took place.
Okay.
And then we ended up with this plan. And we are now, I suppose that plan came, I think it was 2016, and now we're actually implementing the plan. And it's the best group that I've been part of, I suppose, because it's a group of, all different walks of life, and we all have one thing in common, which is to improve the health and well-being of 0 to 3 year olds. And for me, that was kind of my vehicle for spreading the word about infant mental health, and that's the emotional and social well-being of children 0 to 3, and which really involves looking after their parents, and so it's all about that bond that the parent develops with their child, and how the parent can best be supported. So that's how the Galway Parent Network and Nicole became involved, because I was already involved with Nicole on a perinatal mental health group, which is all about women during and after birth and their own mental health.
All right. Okay. And can I ask you, how has this whole message around infant mental health being received here locally, even within Galway? Because I'll be honest, for me, the term infant mental health is not something we hear about very often as parents. I mean, certainly when we're in the maternity ward, the midwives are not talking to us about infant mental health. We're told how to change our babies and feed our babies, but mental health is not really on the agenda. So can you kind of explain how it's all gone down here in Galway?
I think many people even me years ago, when I heard infant mental health, I thought, how do those words go together? Because we usually think about mental health when it comes to an older age group, but really it's how a baby develops emotionally and socially, and how the parent how the parent attunes to their baby and to their toddler in those first years, and to do with the vast amount of brain development that happens. And that's why it's that 0 to 3 year old, the first 1,000 days is so important. What the Galway Parent Network did was, Nicole had these, she took these messages from UNICEF. There were these posters on how to build a happy baby, and there was 4 evidence-based posters and messages that looked at myths and truths in relation to bonding with your baby. And she brought these to Galway, and it was with the Early Years Committee that, you know, part of our plan was to spread a message about infant mental health in Galway. So one of the first things that I did, for instance, was I got professionals from the Irish Association for Infant Mental Health to run a masterclass for us for 2 days.
Okay.
Anybody who was interested in it could join. They didn't have to be part of an organisation, and we learned more about what it was and how we could kind of support that within the community.
Right.
And other things, I mean, we have had kind of, you know, there's been another thing we did last year was myself and Nicole, there was a stress documentary that I was involved with last year. This is kind of like the beautiful, I suppose, marrying up of doing the media work that I was doing at the time on stress, and they were making the stress documentary. And then I said, well, actually, we're at the moment doing we're launching our posters on infant mental health. And it's all about the early stress response and how important it is to respond to your baby when they have when they cry and when they have needs, and how that relates to the early stress response. All, of course, talking about good enough parenting, and you know that it does. You don't have to be responding to your baby all the time. That you do it in a good enough kind of way. But it was great to be able to do that with Nicole last year and to show what we were doing in Galway nationally. So in other words, I wrote an article for Brainstorm, which is this part of RTE website, which is for academics to write articles about things that might be of interest to the general public. So I decided to write an article called How to Build a Happy Baby, where I shared the 4 messages of the posters. And then following that, we brought the people from RTE to actually film us. We did in the Ard Family Resource Centre, we got parents to come in and with their babies, and we did a little workshop where we spoke about the myths and the truths about the 4 posters. And it was a real kind of informal, you know, have a coffee, sit down, talk about why it mightn't be the best idea to let your baby cry it out, for instance. And the kind of messages that they might be getting from their mothers-in-law, or from, you know, the kind of what they you know, what they are feeling about it is. And like that is something that we hope to do further. But I suppose in the last few months for me, I found it difficult to keep all of those balls in the air because I've been working and I have 2 kids and I've been writing a book. So like I've just, you know, I've gone then on the Today Show, for instance, with Maura and Dahi, and spoken about infant mental health a few months ago, and that was a real, I mean, that got a lot of kind of viewers, and I think people
it was a great interview.
Thank you. So I keep that going in the background, but at the moment I've just had to focus on the book because I just can't keep every ball in the air.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Juggle. Yeah. I think as mammies, we're like, we've got an MA in juggling without even knowing it. But and I'd love to touch on your book in a moment. But just to shift gears a little bit, you mentioned your work, you know, nationally, and that there's been a lovely synergy there between doing the national broadcasting stuff and how that can filter down here in Galway, which is wonderful. But can I ask you again, like what brought about that, I suppose that shift in your career towards, from where I can see, Malie, is I suppose you're contributing towards this long-awaited public discourse on mental health, where we're finally freeing ourselves from the stigma, from the shame. I think a lot of your work around parenting certainly has that theme running through as well. So was there something in you that drove that move towards a more of a media career?
I couldn't, I always wanted to do that. I kind of knew that I wanted I'm probably an exhibitionist as a person, okay? So in other words, like, you'll see me this time next year in the Town Hall Theatre on the stage, you know, like in a musical, for sure. Like, I know that I have that. I look
forward to it.
I have that in me. I will be part of the chorus and not a main part. But I have that in me, as does my daughters probably do as well, and my mother. So I have that in me. So I don't really mind kind of speaking in public. That doesn't freak me out. And I'll be honest with you, I was quite disillusioned by my job. I love the work that I do in terms of working with kids every day and hoping that they leave my room and their parents with a little bit more hope for, for things improving and things like that. But I was dealing with, and I still am, very huge waiting lists and trying to kind of navigate my way around how am I going to actually manage this.
Sure.
Because at the time I didn't have a secretary to help me, or, things were different back then, and I just felt really overwhelmed.
Sure.
So I just thought, like, if I can write a blog and, if I can write a blog, and literally share what I share in most of my sessions, because most of my sessions with parents have the same themes running through them. Of course, they develop as my knowledge kind of develops, but I just thought if I can just even impart a couple of those themes, then I'm actually going to be helping more people, and also people feel less like, oh, well, there's Malie, she's a clinical psychologist, and it's all about perfect parenting. And that is total and utter rubbish, because I'm not a perfect parent. I screw up. It's okay. I try my best every day, and I try to learn. And, it's about being compassionate towards ourselves and our kids. And that's what I wanted to spread. So that's kind of how it went. And even though I still have my job and I still have the waiting list, I take it less personally, and I just try the best for the person that I have sitting in front of me, and that's all I can do. And I'm quite human with them, and I share my own stuff in an appropriate way, obviously.
Yeah, which I think must be very, very powerful, and I'm sure resonates with people who are engaging in that work.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk about the book and this whole theme of parental self-care, because it's again, it's not something that we talk about very much in our communities, in society as a whole. I mean, I think things are changing, around mental health, obviously, in this country, but the concept of looking after us as parents is I think is maybe a secondary thing in our minds, and I think your book and your work almost puts it as an absolute primary thing. It comes first. So could you just talk to our listeners a little bit about parental self-care?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you hear that kind of statement, like, you can't pour from an empty cup, but I don't, it is, some people might think parental self-care, or like that's about giving yourself a nice kind of treat in a spa or something like that. But actually it's huge, it's absolutely crucial, because if you think, when you have the responsibility as a parent to help your child to regulate and to learn about emotions and to regulate their emotions, how can you possibly do that if you don't spend time on regulating your own emotions? And the only way to do that is to look deep within and to actually figure out, where am I at right now? How am I feeling? How can I meet my child's need in this moment if I'm completely like wrecked, overwhelmed, not able, and if my shark music is playing loud and clear. So that whole idea of shark music is this idea from Circle of Security Parenting, which is something I've become a facilitator of, and I hope to actually run in Galway. So I've run it publicly, but I'd like to actually run it even privately for people, is this idea of the background music for that plays when our child presents us with a particular need. So in Circle of Security Parenting, they kind of talk about this path you go down. So they bring you on a journey where you're going down this path towards a beach. This beautiful music is playing in the background, and they ask parents, how do you feel about going around this corner and to this beach? And the parents say, oh, I feel really hopeful and really kind of calm and all of that. They show the exact same scene in the next clip, where you have da na 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 and kind of shark music playing, and then they ask parents, how do you feel around turning the corner? They're like, well, I feel really stressed, I don't know what's ahead, and all of that. Which kind of shows you, like, if as a parent you have put time into yourself in terms of knowing yourself, whether that be getting counseling or whether it be knowing that a swim helps you to feel, kind of balanced, or taking 5 minutes out, or asking for help, or whatever it is, if like that will actually change the sound of the music that plays in the background when your child says, mommy, 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 I need you, I need you, I need you, help me now, and that'll actually change the way you react to them.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's not like, you know, people might think, oh, well, let's not talk about parental self-care because that's just parents kind of spoiling themselves. But actually, it is
Yeah.
crucial for your kids.
Yeah.
So if you don't do it for you, do it for them.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I
And
mean?
yeah,
But
yeah.
try
And
to do it for you too.
As you say, that's what you're modeling to your child as well. And
Yeah.
that's the power.
Exactly.
The power in it too.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's good for your child, like, to see you heading off. If you can't, not every parent is able to head off at 7:30 or 8 o'clock for their exercise class. That's fair enough. There are single parents out there who can't do that, right? But if they see you, like, it's about, like that's why I'm really into the idea of compassion focused therapy, which is about building on your soothing circle. That we have a threat circle, a drive circle, and a soothing circle. We need to build on our sense of soothing, which is all about the social relationships we have with others and how we nurture ourselves, even getting to know, even like I've asked clients sometimes, parents, what helps you to feel good and to help you tick? And they look at me blankly and have no idea what I'm talking about. And I'm like, well, what do you like doing? I don't know, you know, like they might fill every moment, maybe even with looking at their phone or, you know, busying themselves doing stuff that's not actually even good for them or nurturing. And it's so important to figure out what that is before you then kind of, you know, try to make a commitment to yourself to do that.
Yeah, and it's such a common experience as parents, particularly I think as mums, we lose ourselves, you know, and we lose that connection to our inner self as well. So I think it's such an important thing to reconnect with that, and that it's not necessarily about things that you have to do, but more about how you are within.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like reflective functioning. It's like this idea in psychology, we talk about reflective functioning. So it's all about, like, there's an amazing study that was done by by Funagi and colleagues, and basically what it said was, you could have had a really traumatic past, okay, where loads of stuff happened in your life. If you can reflect on that past and make sense of it, it won't impact on the relationship you have with your child. Whereas if you can reflect on, you know, like if you can reflect on it, it won't have an impact. If you can't, it will have an impact. If you look at it the other way around, you could have the most shiny childhood, but if you have absolutely no idea of the feelings that are brought on by your children's needs, then you're kind of like steering a ship blindly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
So that's kind of where I decided I needed to include. I could have written, like, I'm writing a book at the moment there about a compassionate response to parenting your anxious child.
Yeah. Tell me about the book.
Yeah. So it's kind of, I've always wanted to write a book, and it was always kind of in my, but I just didn't really have the guts. Like, I was just like, well, how do you even do that?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I was lucky enough to have written a kind of a tiny little book with Brezzy and Susan Quirk.
Yes.
From A Lust for Life on the Little Book of Sound. And then, and I'd contributed on another book on anxiety.
Yeah.
Owning it. Before, and so, you know, Brezzy was good enough to kind of hook me up with his publishing agent, and she told me, this is how you write a book proposal. I did that last year, and it took me about 3 or 4 months, but I was really kind of specific about how I wanted this book to be. I knew anxiety is a huge issue for parents and children. So I decided, and then compassion focused therapy was huge for me and still is. So I decided I was going to write a compassionate response to parenting your anxious child. I won't reveal the exact first title yet.
Okay, top secret.
All will come.
Yes.
And it has an interesting beginning, but all will come.
And we will be seeing it on our bookshelves when?
This time next year in April.
Wow,
Yeah.
Exciting. Yeah. How's that going to be?
I'm nearly finished writing it now,
right,
and it's with HarperCollins Ireland, and I it was great, like that. I actually I put it out into the universe, and it was great that I had a couple of options of publishers to go with, and I went with HarperCollins because I felt they were a great fit. And it has taken me longer than I expected to write, but I actually could have written a book about self-care for parents, really, and about emotional regulation. But so it's almost like I've written 2 books in one. So now I have to, we have to edit it down big time there probably is another book or books in me, but it's been really hard. It's been a total roller coaster. Like, my family are very much sick of me saying I'm going to, you know, this is the room that I'm writing it in, this garden room.
We're sitting in your gorgeous writing room.
So it's kind of like, you know, I'm nearly ready to just release it into the universe and let the editor kind of, you know, have a
the birthing process.
Exactly. But it's been a process, but I really just hope that it's helpful to somebody.
I'm sure it will be. I'm sure it will be. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see it on the shelves. Malie, can I just ask you one final question, and thank you so much for your time today. Just overall, I know it's a bit of a big question, but how would you like to make the greatest impact in your work? You know, like if you were, say, I don't want to say on your deathbed, but you know, in your later years and you're reflecting back on your life and you're thinking, wow, I'm so happy that I did that, or that feels like so important or fulfilling for me. What aspect of your work would you say?
Just showing my humanity, you know, just showing that I screw up and that I'm a parent and I regret and I feel guilty and you know, things don't go perfectly in my house, and that I'm, you know, I'm not the best friend all the time. I'm not the best parent all the time. I'm not the best worker all the time, and that it's okay, and you just keep trying every day, and that, you know, hopefully just spreading that message of there's no need to feel ashamed, that we're all in this together, and whatever way I do that, whatever channel I do that with, I suppose I kind of feel like that's the most important thing for me. You know, and spreading good, like that work that I did with Volunteer Galway before about, you know, like doing good for others actually, you know, incredibly extends your life, even by the amount of years you live. If I can just, you know, that's all about being compassionate towards yourself, but if you turn that compassion inwards, you can then extend it outwards, and there's nothing more amazing than actually giving to people, you know, and not expecting back, you know, like seeing, and that's what I want to do for my kids, is just them actually wanting to help people out there that are in need. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, it's, for me, that's it, really kind of that giving in and giving back out.
Lovely. Well, that's a lovely note to finish on, Malie.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. We might, in the notes of this episode, just include some resources if you have some for parents or around your work. So that would be great. We'll include those as well.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, Malie.
Thank you, Ruth.
So many thanks to Malie for taking some time out of her schedule to join us on our podcast. And many thanks to you for listening today. We hope you enjoyed it. As I said at the start, we'll include links to both information on our service as well as some of the topics that Malie talked about in our conversation. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you next time.